Sample problem 3.17 says we're going to be writing an overall equation from a reaction sequence. So a lot of times in chemistry, and I'll go as far as to say most of the time in chemistry, reactants don't simply just go to products. Normally there's a number of steps that gets us from reactants to products. And this problem is going to be an example of that. And those are known as reaction mechanisms. And what you do is you look at a reaction mechanism and look at all the individual steps and add those together to get the overall balanced chemical equation. So that's what we're doing here. It says roasting is the first step in extracting copper from chalcolite, the ore used in the previous problem. In the next step, copper 1 oxide reacts with powdered carbon to yield copper metal and carbon monoxide gas. Write a balanced overall equation for the two-step process. So the first step, that's the one we've been talking about in the past few sample problems. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite that up here. 2 copper sulfide, and that was a solid, plus 3 O2, and that was a gas, yields 2 copper 1 oxides, and that was a solid, it was a white powder, plus 2 SO2 gas, right, sulfur dioxide. So that was step 1, and I'm going to put a 1 there. Step 2, it says that the copper 1 oxide, so that's going to be one of my reactants, so I'm going to rewrite that, Cu2O, reacts with powdered carbon, so plus carbon, and that's going to be a solid, to yield, so now I'm going to draw my yield arrow, copper metal, so that's just going to be solid copper, and carbon monoxide gas, so plus CO gas. Now let's check really quickly. Our next step in these equations, the first one's to translate the statement. The next one is to check to see if they're balanced. So let's see, I have 2 coppers and only have 1 copper. So I can fix that easy enough, right? If I just put a 2 over here on the right side, that fixes my copper situation. I have 1 oxygen on the left, I have 1 oxygen on the right, I have 1 carbon on the left, and I have 1 carbon on the right. Okay, so now that's balanced. So to write the overall equation, I have to add step 1 and 2 together. So plus, and then I'm going to put equals. So the next thing is to compare reactants to products between steps. And if it appears on one side and the other side, then it gets crossed out. It gets canceled, okay? So let's see. I've got copper sulfide on the left of my reaction arrow. So I look over here at all my products on the right and I see, do I have copper sulfide anywhere? And the answer to that question is no, correct? So I'm going to write that down as my first reactant. It did not get crossed out. So 2 copper sulfides plus, what's going to be my next reactant? Let's check. I've got 3 oxygens on the left. Do I have any oxygen gases on the right? No, I do not. So that's going to come down. So plus 3 O2 gas. All right, and so now I check the reactants from step 2. Okay, so I'm looking here. Let's see, I've got 1 copper oxide, and look, right here I've got 2 copper oxides. So this one's going to get crossed out, and one of these is going to get crossed out. So that 2 is going to get crossed out, and that's going to turn into a 1. So that's going to be my next reactant. So so that's not going to be a reactant at all. Sorry, that doesn't get written down. So now I check my next reactant. I've got copper, solid carbon. Do I have solid carbon over here on the right anywhere? No, I do not. So let's see here. So I'm going to bring that carbon down, so plus solid carbon. Now that is all of my reactants, so I'm going to draw my yield arrow and I'm going to start looking at products. Now we've already crossed out one of these right here, so I'm only going to bring one of them down for my products. So Cu2O. That's going to be solid. All right, and now I've got to look at my SO2 gas. Right, that's my next one. Do I have it as a reactant? No. So I'm going to bring that down as my next product. So plus 2 SO2 gas plus my next product is 2 coppers. I don't have any solid coppers over here on the left. So plus, I'm going to have to come below here because I'm out of room, plus 2 coppers, solids, plus my carbon monoxide gas, because I don't have carbon monoxide as a reactant over here anywhere, so it doesn't get crossed out. All right, so now we have to check. To know that you've done this correctly or not, this equation that we've just written should balance. So let's do that next. I've got 2 times 2 copper, so that's 4 coppers on the left of my arrow. I've got 2 plus 2 coppers, so that's 4 coppers on both sides. So the coppers balance out. 3 times 2 is 6. I've got 6 oxygens on the left. I've got 1, 2, 3, right? 4, 5, because I've got 2 of those. 6. So I have 6 oxygens on both sides of the arrow. So the next thing is the carbon. I've got 1 carbon, 1 carbon. So this balances out. So that must mean I did everything correctly. So I'll put my box around it. And that is my balanced equation that I got from this reaction mechanism, from that 2-step process.